The infancy narratives of Jesus feature men and women reflecting the spectrum of different groups within the society of that day. But all were called to be disciples of Jesus the Christ. There were the raggedy poor discriminated against shepherds. Why, they weren't even allowed to worship in the temple. The Gentile magi, symbolic of scholars, all who are truly wise, all who search for truth and for meaning in a world that is always darkened. Especially Mary, the mother of the Lord, and Joseph, observant, faithful, committed to the covenant. All share the one way of responding to the invitation of God. And Mary sums it up best. Be it done to me according to your word. Long years ago, when I served in the Air Force as a chaplain, I was in what they call the bachelor officers' quarters. And there was a colonel who also was there. And he was a strange man in many ways. He was certainly raised as a Catholic, a graduate of Notre Dame. And a very smart man, but he wasn't observant. But he did say one thing that was very wise. He said, you know, the one thing that counts is doing the will of God. Everything else is fluff. Well, we could argue about that. But he's certainly right on the market that somehow to do the will of God is at the heart of what it means to be a faithful person. So here we are, and we bridge the divisions that describe our society. There are the well-off and the not-so well-off. The people who are recent arrivals in our nation, and people who can trace their lineage back 100 or more years. Some of us are very highly educated, others not so highly educated. But each of us, in different ways, have heard the invitation of the Lord. That is why we're here. He says to us, follow me. And we are called not just to believe. That's too easy, to give mental assent to something that is so distant from the reality of our life. But we are called to live in the way, to live as disciples of the Lord, to glorify God in the different circumstances of our very real lives, to glorify God by living in faith and hope and love. You know, we're surrounded by skepticism and by the platitudes of unbelief of our society. It has always been this way. We are also accompanied by men and women of great generosity and humility of heart, whose response to the challenges of life is heroic, demanding the very best that is in them. All we have to do is to open our eyes and open our hearts, and we will see them, these very faithful people. They are the mothers and fathers of disabled children, very much disabled. But they stay loving each other, and they stay helping that child no matter what. They're the people who somehow teach in areas that are very difficult, but they stay with it because they want to serve. There are people who work in mental hospitals day after day after day, and they deal with very difficult people, but they are called to bring life to them, and they do. You know something? Really, everybody whose attitude towards life and response to life is to serve rather than to get. They are the people who have listened to the Lord as he says, follow me. At the beginning of this new year, we do not know what lies ahead. The joys, the challenges, inevitable in our journey. But we are invited to trust God by resolving to follow the light wherever it leads, whatever it demands. My prayer for you, and for myself as well, is that we listen for the voice of God. It comes in so many different ways. It's not just through the scriptures, and not just through the liturgy of the church. It comes through all the people we encounter who somehow evidence the presence of the Holy One. So we listen to the voice of God. And this is where we follow what it means to follow. And if we somehow resolutely determine to follow the way, we will bring light and life to all we encounter. So I wish you not a happy New Year. I wish you a holy New Year that leads to the fullness of life that God intends for each of us who are His disciples.